Hey folks, Fashawn here from Rekon, and I'm on site right now at one of our mapping jobs. You can see all the stockpile. Today we're focused on mapping volumes for a aggregate producer, and so we're using our photogrammetry tools to do that. It's the best tool for this, the most cost effective. So we figured we'd start making some videos like this and kind of walk you through the process of what we're doing. And then maybe we'll make another video later on to show all the processing involved in some of the files we get out of it, and some of the deliverables you can take on to use for your operations, such as this one. All right, so I'm going to go over to our setup, which you can see behind me over here, so we can show you what we're using to do the mapping today. All right, I'm going to try to navigate down this hill without bailing. Some parkour. Apologies to anyone who actually does parkour. That definitely wasn't parkour, but it's my parkour. All right. So behind me here, what you can see is our M200 and our Maverick 2 Pro just set up on our launch site here. You know, with all the cones delineating it, and the RTK base for the M200. On the M200, if we take a closer look, we have an X4S model DJI camera, which is a 20 megapixel camera with a global shutter. What's really great about that is a global shutter. All that means is, you know, this camera is going to take an image all at once on the sensor, as opposed to rolling from top to bottom, and that helps us to get better images with less distortion as we're on the move, as we're mapping, which you know, keeps our time that we spend mapping down to a minimum with these multi-rotors. All right, so that's a lot of our setup on the devices we're using. So basically, with this system, we're using a process called photogrammetry, and basically, photogrammetry is when you take a lot of images of an area that you're trying to map. You have the position of those images geotagged into them, and they're overlapping each other by a certain percentage, usually somewhere between 70% and 90%. And what that does is software is able to look at those pictures, see the overlap, see the similar pixels, similar points on the ground, be it, you know, some different points of gravel or maybe even some grass or some different discolorations in the dirt. And then it takes those similar points and triangulates a position because it already knows with a degree of accuracy where the pictures are positioned. And it goes through some iterations in that process to make that more accurate. And we'll look at that in the next video we make. That it's going to look a little bit at the processing and shows what we can get from this data. But when you're thinking of photogrammetry, basically what we're making out of this data is a three-dimensional point cloud. It's colorized because we're getting it from images, so that's really useful when you want to look at a model of this area in color to kind of define easily what each object you're looking at is, as well as not only how big it is. So that kind of helps in that way. And then it also makes what we call an orthomosaic, which is basically a map plan picture of the area. So if you were to look down from space and directly onto this patch of land, you wouldn't see any parallax, or you would see very little parallax the further away you got. And an ortho image, or ortho rectified image, is basically that. It's an image of the area that's been rectified to be looking downward on every point of the image. So you could literally take that image and measure from point to point, and it would be a scalable distance. You know, from those two deliverables, from the ortho or from the 3D point cloud, we can pull all sorts of other pieces of information. Like in this area, we're going to use it for stockpile volumes. We can also get a topographic map and produce contour lines. We can also even use that further with some other softwares to identify where you know, where your drainage is currently running. Identify maybe the watersheds in the area, all sorts of things. And that's where our data is feeding civil engineering groups, surveying groups, and operations so that they can make better decisions about their area. So there's a lot of information you can pull from this kind of a map. It's very useful, and because it's using an imaging sensor instead of the other system that we do use, which is a LiDAR sensor, which is using lasers, an imaging sensor is relatively a lot cheaper to run and operate. So for aggregate producers, out there wanting to map their pits but not wanting to spend a ton of money, this is a great option. And this is what we provide to most of our aggregate producers, because most of their pits are established. They don't have vegetation in the area that would make some of the weaknesses of photogrammetry come through, which are it can't push through vegetation. So when you have a mapping area that you're dealing with that has vegetation in it, unless what you're trying to do is get the images of those trees so that maybe someone else can use it to speciate the trees, identify spacing on trees and things like that, then it's not as useful, because we can't get a proper topographic map with that sort of a tool. With LiDAR, that's another service we'll go through in another video, but it's able to push through those sorts of difficulties, because it just needs one point to fall through, and that's a direct measurement on the ground. Whereas photogrammetry, we're saying we need 7 or 8 overlapping points that see that same particular point, and it's very difficult to do that when you have something like vegetation blocking your way. Yeah, cool. All right, so next video we'll talk about how we process this data. We'll maybe show you some videos and cool fly-throughs of the 3D model. I'll splice a couple of videos in at the end of this so you can kind of see the area, see what it looks like. Thanks for watching. Like us, subscribe, follow Rekon. We're at Rekon BC on Facebook, Rekon_solutions on Twitter, and Rekon Solutions on Instagram. So yeah, check us out.